Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Hello, everyone, wherever you are on the world. Please welcome to the next episode of CTO Roundtable. We'll wait a little bit for the audience to come. Let's see if people will come. I've just usually given a couple of seconds more to join. You can also say hello in the chat and write what country you're from. It's always very interesting how you can see people around the world. Okay, so the people are joining. So let's start. Hello today. I'm Marek. I'll be your host today. Let me just start with a little bit of introductory slide first, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so today's episode is about the mindset in the cloud, and this is a topic that was brought up a couple of times this season because we are mostly talking about the cloud this year. And we talked already about the finances, about the expectations in the cloud, about some technical stuff. And from time to time, I heard this opinion from the guest that, if you really want to be in the cloud, you have to also adapt a whole cloud mindset within your organization. And what usually happens is that the other speakers just nodded and say, yeah, this is true. And but we really never had the time to, dive deep into this topic. What does this actually mean to have a cloud mindset? And I just wanted to unwrap it today with my wonderful guests. So starting from the bottom, we have Ursula Koski, a Nordics partner CTO at AWS. Hi, Ursula.
Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
A couple of words about you.
Yeah, so hi, everybody. My name is Ursula Koski. I work for AWS. I have been with AWS for 2.5 years now. My current role is kind of a double role. So I'm the CTO for the Nordics partners, so covering all the Nordic countries. I'm also a technical architect, and I have been a technical architect also before joining AWS. So I still do lead that role, but now I have a team around it to actually combine that business enablement side with the technical enablement and actually transforming those mindsets. Very nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to have you here. And our second guest is Sami Pipul, CTO in residence in Baloise Mobility. Hi, Sami.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
And so what do you do?
Yeah, I've been a kind of an IT executive all-rounder for quite a while. Worked in different kinds of enterprises, from telecoms to Microsoft to different cybersecurity, for example. Built a startup as a early employee from scratch, going all in with AWS and all the services. And now I'm CTO in residence, as the title slide says, at Baloise Mobility, which is a CVC, a corporate venture capitalist. We invest into promising mobility startups. And I basically partner very closely with those startup teams, working through their own journey in building a great product. And of course, I'm also exposed to the insurance company that is Baloise.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We'll probably discuss it in a minute. Nice to have you here, Sami. And I'm Marek. I'm Marek Gajda. I am the CTO at the Software House. So we have all the CTOs here. By the way, both Sami and Ursula are from Finland, so it's also a little bit of Nordics event today. We even have a laugh in the backstage that maybe it should be in Finnish. I'm sure that our other guests will take it fine, but it will be rather hard for me to ask any questions. Let's keep that in English, but maybe on the chat, if we have someone from Finland, you can write the question in Finnish if you like.
To do so.
Yeah, okay. So a little bit of logistics. As I mentioned, there is a chat. There is a chat in the nope, not yet. There is a chat in the bottom. Please feel free to write anything. Write also what do you think about this cloud mindset. If you have any experiences with a cloud mindset within your organization, or you have any questions for us. One quirk that is in the Zoom is that the default drop down with the list on the chat, it says that the question is sent to the panelists only. So if you want to share with all the audience, which I highly encourage you to do, you have to select in the drop down everyone, and then everyone will see it in the chat, right? So the hour is so the meeting is 1 hour long, and I will try to keep the time, and it is recorded for the use. Hello, everyone in the future. Here we are in 2023. Maybe somebody watches this. Okay, so let's start with first things first. So I did a little bit of research about what the cloud mindset actually is. What's the definition of a cloud mindset? I really haven't found something very particular which will answer me this question. I see that there are lots of perspectives and lots of angles of what this actually is. Even a ChatGPT couldn't come up with a reasonable answer for me, so I didn't paste it here. He of course state that he's a language processor model that works only until 2021, so he cannot answer this question. Yeah, so McKinsey says that compares it more to the lift and shift model and says that lift and shift is not enough. We have lots of articles what is this thing called cloud mindset. Then SAP experts answer that there is no such thing as a cloud mindset, that you should actually have your own mindset, which is more like a flexibility and resilience. There is Forbes says that this is a cloud first approach. I also found one thing that this is cloud mentality. So the question for our guests, maybe Ursula first, it's how do you define this? And this is all the same terms, or this is different ones?
It's actually a really good question, because the question is it really a cloud mindset? Is it the business mindset of what is the business that you're leading? And so I was having this discussion around business development, and somebody before even the cloud existed mentioned that if we had like a magic wand of being able to create any kind of technology fundamentals, like just say that this is the project fundamentals that we need, is it storage, network, whatever it is, that they could get it like just a snap of a finger. So that would actually escalate the way that we do business. So you could actually get to those technical components and start building whatever you're building. So one thing that definitely comes to mind is that the speed of delivery, speed of innovation. So whatever you're doing in business, let's say if you're a gaming company, if you're what kind of a delivery mechanisms you have, can you escalate that pace of innovation? So I would say it's a combination of things: having enough resources to experiment, having that scale, and also the innovation, pace of innovation. I would say that those are parts of that cloud mindset, or that business mindset.
Yep. Sami, what do you think?
Yeah, to me, I mean, there are some synonyms like mindset, variations of it. It's all the same thing, I think. But I mean, first things first is like, I see the innovation tends to kind of move up the stack. So, the lower levels get commoditized, and then you come up with new and new layers, and those typically improve productivity or some kind of a metric. So I see this cloud mindset just embracing that kind of a development stream in cloud context. So where you are curious about what these new enablers can do for your business, to your productivity, So productivity, I suppose, is kind of where it boils down to me. But also that you believe that you can let go some of that lower level of stuff, outsource that to somebody who is dedicated for doing that. You believe that, say, your cloud vendor is doing better business of, say, managing the power supply and making sure that patches are applied and so forth. And then reflect that into your daily operation as well, with your team, resourcing, your ways of working. That to me is what I believe this cloud mindset to be.
Good. So it's more like service oriented. I come from the IT, so for me, I always I'm in favor of something called service oriented architectures, right? So everything is a service. And from what you say, it's everything can be a service. So like the development can be a service, hosting can be a service, like every part of your business can be treated as a service. And even I know the companies that internally they divide their companies in the way that they are providing services to internally to the other parts, right? So that's kind of an interesting take. And Sami, you also have I think a kind of similar situation right now, because you have as far as we talk, you live in two worlds. One is like this startups world, and one is like the Baliwas, which is a kind of a big mature company, right? So how does it look to you? I think that you have a great opportunity to compare, like how does it look like on every stage of the company's life cycle, and what's their mindset, and do they share some same problems or other problems?
Yeah, indeed. I guess it's a kind of a privilege that I get to work with many different kinds of companies. So I guess Ursula, you kind of share the same opportunity, but looking at it from this portfolio perspective, many of the companies are early stage. The world is open. They don't have any legacy. They get to pick whichever tools they like to work with. So obviously they gravitate towards using cloud. But the level of it still varies. That some are more accustomed to using certain, formula. They tend to repeat that easily. Some are more embracing the cloud mindset and going with managed services and so forth. That's kind of the startup table stake, essentially. That what you do. And of course, that there's a strong contrast to, say, the enterprise world. And to be honest, coming into this role, I thought that we didn't have to talk about cloud migration anymore. But it is very much a fact of life in many enterprises, and certainly in my current company as well, that there is a significant amount of business that is on-prem. And it's been there. It's still maintained actively. It's still developed actively. Now, cloud comes along. What's an enterprise, CIO to do? So, it is very actual to think about the cloud in this context. And I think the last few months have actually accelerated this. Again, seems like there's always needs to be some kind of a push for this. And for me, it's the data, because the innovation, speed of innovation that we can see in, say, machine learning at the moment is all happening in the cloud. It's all powered by the cloud. And I think that'll be the kind of the next frontier for enterprise, even those that are slightly maybe more cautious in adopting cloud.
So what you said is like I heard a couple of times before that so do we only live in a bubble that everything is cloud, right? Because it's I heard a couple of times, who do you want to convince now for a migration to the cloud? Actually, everyone is in cloud. There is not a question about if or not migrate to the cloud, because everyone is there, and this is kind of obvious. So what do you think, Ursula? Is this like true, or there are still like companies that are struggling or researching? And
So I would say that if you look at it that way, that in ways you're right, that there are a lot of like majority of the companies. So there's not too many companies that would say we don't use the cloud at all in any context. But the question actually is, what is in the cloud? So what have you actually taken and either migrated, lift and shifted, or even transformed to cloud nativeness? And what I see is, because I have very different customers. So I have customers that are in the very established, let's say, banking side. So you have the financial sector that has a really long history. Then I work with healthcare and same thing. So you have really long history, a lot of pressure of patient safety, privacy, etc. And then, of course, then I work with the fast movers of like the gaming industry. So you have those gaming industry leaders who can be the fast movers. So what is different when you talk to those different companies and different people and CTOs or technical teams is that the question is, what is going to be in the cloud? What is ready to be in the cloud? And sometimes you actually end up hearing, this cannot be run in the cloud. And the reasoning is it will not be able to, let's say, scale, or it won't be safe enough, or it won't be. And very often it's about what we already know. So if you don't know about the architectural patterns that you can do different kinds of scenarios with, let's say, like if you have a hybrid scenario, let's say you're running a hospital system, what can you run in the cloud? And what happens if you have a network outage? So let's say that you have an electricity outage.
Sorry, but I think we have something.
Can you hear me? Can you still hear me?
Let's try it again.
Oh, let's try again.
Okay, I think it's okay.
Okay, it's back. Okay, so I was saying that knowing those architectural patterns, what can you do with, for example, critical environments like hospital environments? How can you fall back to on-prem, for example? How can you have hybrid scenarios? And what are the capabilities of those failover scenarios that exist? And I think it boils down to what we know and also the educational piece. So how do we educate? How do we talk about the scenarios? How do we do the technical trainings and understand those things? And how do actually we break into the markets, or which are more, let's say, old-fashioned or have very critical requirements? And I think it's fundamentally about what we know and what we trust. So that messaging side maybe needs to evolve a bit.
Mm-hmm. And Sami, you are, I think Baluas is one of the examples of this maybe mission critical. It's a good work here, but kind of governance required company, right? Because they handle kind of
regulation is kind of the key word.
So what do you think about it? That those are more of a threats or a pros in the cloud about it? I think that you probably have this kind of discussion, right?
I mean, looking at it in general terms, I think that the financial sector is probably a laggard in terms of adopting cloud, just in general, not just Paluas, but based on what I've heard from basically everybody else. And in organizations that have made huge investments into physical infrastructure, it's a kind of understandable that okay, you would have to write off all that, fire some people or change roles and so forth. It's just a big undertaking. So that's the process that pretty much everybody in that field is going through, and it's very easy to sort of raise doubts about okay, why do we trust Amazon to take care of it? Is it going to be problems with the regulators and this kind of thing? So it's sort of easy to sort of stall that progress. I think everybody in the industry kind of understands that that's the direction. It's just a question of how, when, what workloads, etc. And so it's a constant balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we are 2 years after the COVID. Do you think that changed the mindset as well?
I would say it has. So I actually had a very interesting case before COVID hit, and we actually were transforming an old company, old family-owned company, to get more cloud native. So doing both lift and shift transformational stuff, etc. And I remember before COVID, before we even had an idea of COVID, the company CEO was saying that, Ursula, why would I do this? So what's the point? Like, I have my family working for the company. It's very close to my heart. What's the benefit of me going to the cloud? And one benefit that we talked about is the scaling of cost. So if something drastic happens, can you scale the cost down? And he actually put it into words when we were negotiating this, that, okay, let me get it right. So can I scale down the cost of servers in the middle of, let's say, some emergency scenario that I will pay less, and then I don't actually have to cut cost in my staff? And yes, you can. So you can do that. So you have that flexibility in the cost side. And then of course COVID hit, and when so everything bounced back, he came back to me and said, actually, that's actually what we did. We actually scaled down our servers because our production was almost halted for a year, because it was in an industry that was around travel and entertainment, etc. And he said, to put it into really rude terms, I didn't have to put my brother on a garden leave, or my family or my employees, because I could actually scale the cost. And that is really significant, to have that flexibility.
Yeah. And this is what the cloud offers to some extent. Sami, how COVID works on you? Did you change a lot, or you get back to normal?
I mean, for me, of course, it personally changed a lot, because I changed roles from being a startup CTO to be more of this sort of a remote support for many startups. So it was a big change, but
so you work
in
as a
terms
service.
of yeah, exactly. So it made me virtual. It made everybody virtual. So I guess we're all in a cloud a little bit. Of course, since then, things have maybe gotten more back to slightly normal. Maybe the new normal is slightly different than what it was. So we have, I think, have become more cloud native, everybody. We're more flexibly using different kinds of tools, etc. And I've heard that that actually this sort of a cost. I mean, we're also in the middle of a kind of a financial downturn, that where CFOs are going through all kinds of costs very, very closely. And this is what I would actually think, that that being cloud native or having a cloud mindset means also for CFOs and CEOs is to have more focus on delivering value versus the actual, like the cost of, say, a compute cycle or something like that. So you more focus on shipping faster, more meaningful things, and less so about, say, your fixed costs and so forth. So that to me is really at the heart of this transformation coming out of COVID.
Yeah, so this brings us to the famous or infamous discussion, Capex versus Opex, that I also had in my agenda, and I hear about it a lot, that if this should be a Capex, if this should be Opex. I even heard a couple of opinions that I just forget about Capex and Opex, because this is neither this nor that. It's completely different stuff. Ursula, what do you think it's here for the finances? How we should perceive the cloud?
I think we should look at the Capex and Opex discussion also from a point of view that, of course, now we are talking about a lot about the tough times, like we got COVID scenarios running for 2 years. We had to cut cost. Also, what we are seeing, the turmoil, but also when we turn it around, the customers I also talk with is that if we had, let's say, unlimited capacity, how quickly could we ramp up? How quickly could we actually become successful? And one of the challenges, of course, when that flexibility is not built in, or let's say that you have to make a huge pre-investment in order to have those server rooms, those sites, how do you get there? Because you don't necessarily have an unlimited budget anyways. So that's also kind of the flip side of things, what I've been pointing to people, that when you have an amazing company, that the flex is both ways. So you have the opportunity to see how quickly it will grow and also have that global footprint. So let's look at it that way. It's not only about having that one site, you can also extend it globally and have that access points globally. So that ways, I would say that Capex Opex discussion is still quite valid, but we need to figure out what are those pain points that we are talking about. So I would say that those come to mind.
And Sami, how do you explain to the finances and to the CEO?
Yeah, I mean, not to underestimate the tasks that CFOs and CEOs have here, but because it's not an easy formula. At the same time, you have a baseline and you need to start changing it, and then your investors are wondering like, where is this all money going to? And it is also a mindset shift at the top, that you need to start thinking about amortization of assets and then moving the investment from one bucket to another, and that way you also support the work that the re-engineering or reimagining of your architecture needs. So I mean, I wish I had like a formula of this amount of capex versus opex is the perfect one. I don't, but like I said, I believe in this shipping value and being able to move your investments into something that produces a measurable impact, be it up or down. So a lot of this is about saving cost or moving cost from one bucket to another. So yeah, I mean, as a kind of a broad answer to that, I don't know if it answered your question, but that's kind of how I think.
So thanks. So for the saving costs, to be honest, I never saw a company that actually cut the cost by moving to the cloud. Maybe I'm a little bit of devil's advocate here, but this might be because of this complex costing models that it's there. But I see lots of cases where actually people, first they were promised, maybe they were over-promised that moving to the cloud will actually cut the costs, and then here we are, and the costs go higher and higher. And how would you do you have any tips or tricks, Ursula, how you can explain that to the non-technical stakeholders, what actually is going on?
I would actually love to, I know it's a bit of a boring answer that I have, but I would say that in order to really understand what the cost consists of, is that I would make, if it's a decision maker, if it's a technical team, I would actually ask them to take the time and spend, let's say, that half a day to sit down and talk through the different cost scenarios, because there are multiple. So of course, you know that you always have that on-demand pricing type. So basically what you can scale up, scale down and say, we didn't like it, we can let it go. But what about when you're actually investing into the cloud and building something in the cloud? What kinds of cost scenarios and how can you lower the cost? And then different kinds of agreement types come into the picture. And of course, architectural patterns. So architectural patterns in ways of, let's say, what decisions are you making? Where do you need that scalability, or let's say that multi-regional or even a global footprint, because those all have a price point. So I would say that for me, the base level would be that educational piece. So understand what it consists of. And of course, if you're making agreements that will lower your cost, remember, maybe we are a bit different because we typically lower. So if you look at us as a vendor, we are known for lowering the cost. So what you see as a price point today and the agreement that you make today, you will expect the price point to lower. And so you have to compare it with the agreement terms. You have to look at it. Is it 1 year term, 3 year term, etc.? But understanding those will make so much more sense. And believe it or not, we actually do also boot camps where we lower the cost for the customers. So we actually do calculations together with customers and partners in order to lower the cost. So maybe that's a kind of a different mindset, but that's good to know. So I would actually use time on those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my problem with this is kind of going back to the CFO topic as well, that typically in these scenarios, you just look at the bill that comes from AWS and say, why are we paying this much versus what we had before? but then you completely ignore the kind of the personnel costs and all the other overheads that you have when you actually are responsible for your own infrastructure. So I would love to see like a comparison of apples to apples on this. My gut feeling would say that the going all in with cloud would actually benefit. And well, I mean, then of course you need to think about, okay, what additional value do you get from this? So what value do you put for that? So typically in these scenarios where costs increase, go out of control, whatever, you're not, you're doing something wrong, and so you're not like right sizing your infrastructure. Sometimes you just get carried away that there's so much more things that you can do when you're not restricted by your legacy infrastructure. So I think that's kind of the combination. So things like regular well-architected reviews, having a good discussion going on with experts, AWS or your cloud vendor. I think that's kind of what you need to also have in place when you make the jump.
Yeah. And as Anders Balter said in the chat, this is rather about the opportunity as well, or not being in the cloud is like losing this opportunity, right? So there are extra features in the cloud that is acceptable, and it almost seemed to me like a VIP club where actually you have access to the things that others don't, right? And to be you first have to be a member, but also like just to have the access, right? And I think Sami, this is something you mentioned at the beginning, that actually the biggest cross for the cloud in Baluas this year was the appearance of this AI, right? And all this data analysis, and basically if you want to follow all of this EA things, you have to be to some extent to the cloud, right? Or at least if you want to have make a use of all of this tools, they're very easily accessible if you're on the cloud, and this is really a very important point for Balua to considering the cloud, right?
Yeah, like I said, for everybody who is maybe from a more traditional or more regulated sector. So I think that's kind of of course, every year we get some new hype cycle, but I think this has been bubbling under for quite a while already. And of course, the amount of data that say an open AI model is consuming is just vast. It's just not even possible to really run that kind of a stuff on-prem, at least in investments that a regular enterprise is ready to make. But like you said, it's a kind of a club that you can, that is basically, joining membership is free. So it's all there, and you just click a button, and then you can provision yourself some, a cluster that previously building something like that on-prem would have been extremely costly. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the recent updates, and I'm a kind of a AI maximalist in that sense that okay, the cat's out of the bag already. We can't put it back. I think it's time to get on with the times and utilize it maximally, and that's where I see also financial industry going, that many are saying that, okay, now we need to get on board this one, because otherwise we will get left behind.
Yeah, as I said, the access is free, but actually it requires you a certain behavior in order to work, right? Which we call a cloud mindset for the purpose of this call. And does it really and I think this is the investment that you have to take if you want to join the club, right? And so I'm always wondering, so does it really affect the whole organization? I mean, there are always like a tech folks and non-tech folks, right? And in all of the organization, I believe that for tech folks it's not a problem, or maybe this will maybe get back to it. But for these non-tech folks, it's like it really affects everyone. Like we talked about finances right now, accounting. This is something that that probably is something that they should be aware of. But what about HR, for example, or even design, for example? Do you really need to have a other roles in the organization? Ursula, what do you think?
I think it definitely does, and one benefit that I could see is to introduce that mindset of, maybe the mindset is about having that in some ways unlimited resources. So being able to experiment and go through experimentation cycles of seeing how it works, providing those services and scaling those up and down and seeing what works, what doesn't. So maybe the speed of that cycle of innovation, but also if you look at the capabilities it provides for your, let's say, your financial analysts or your HR, introducing certain things that would be maybe very costly in the on-prem to build them from ground up, maybe actually existing already. So that educational piece of providing the different roles of, hey, this could be used directly almost out of the box. I have actually a really interesting example of this it was also during COVID. So we got approached by one customer that said that, because they are in the healthcare sector, that we have the old-fashioned phone center. So you can call in and ask for your test results. But the challenge was that it wasn't scaling, so it doesn't work. So it doesn't scale to that magnitude of people are calling in and everything, all the lines are fully booked. And we're talking about, so you're already existing customer, why wouldn't you use, let's say, Amazon Connect for this? So why wouldn't you build that flow through Amazon Connect of doing voice recognition, doing the phone services also from home? So because people were working from home, and that capability kind of struck them as amazing. Could we try this out? In 2 weeks' time, we actually ramped up the whole phone center that they had the staffing for already, but didn't actually, the old version didn't scale, the new one did, without doing a huge course or having to do 1 year of development in order to do that. So maybe it's on all levels, the change of mindset and the speed that is currently changing in the whole global picture.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you look at an enterprise, there's quite a lot of roles in there. Many of them, they're just dealing maybe with the IT through like a service desk, and they get the tools from IT and they just pick them when they get training for it, etc. So I guess for that kind of those kind of roles, there isn't that much of a change. Maybe the access to new kind of things, and I think it goes to a little bit of, you want to instill like a cloud mindset throughout the organization, then you inspire this kind of curiosity and preparedness to actually pick up and learn some new tools, which make you more productive. So there's a lot of change resistance in large organizations. So I can see that this doesn't always go through the stack, but so if you want to talk about enterprise cloud mindset, I would say that would be it. That you highlight that, okay, this is actually going to make your work more enjoyable by being more curious, finding ways how you can be more productive. For techies, of course, this is typically like a career path that everybody has already seen years ago, that this is where the world is heading. So you just need to go with it. So it's not a big change. It's more like, okay, question of when can we start using this or that tool. So usually techies are kind of the ones asking for it, and the others are more like, wait a minute, we still have to sort out a few things.
Okay, so let's talk about the techies. So they also have to adapt in a kind of cloud mindset, or this is already happening, or how does it work for you? It's like as we say, this is like no brainer for tech people, or this is actually a big challenge?
I would say that it's both. So like Sami said, it's we already know what we know. So those of us who have been in the industry for a long time, we have kind of gotten used to the fact that you have to learn constantly, but now the cycle is even picking up more. So maybe it's also about, when you look at the techies, the level of discomfort and the willingness to say, like, there are certain things that we don't know yet, so we have to learn them. We have to learn the way of doing that innovation cycle faster, and also maybe do some things where we go like, that didn't work. I found one way that doesn't work. Let's see if this one does. So being comfortable in being uncomfortable maybe is the term. And also what I mentioned people, so I do quite a bit of sessions for universities and upcoming techies, is that learn how you learn. So understand how you learn new things, experiment, but also be willing to let go of certain things, because not everything is here to stay. Some things will, but some things we also need to unlearn and accept that we are doing things differently. So I would say that there's a lot of challenges. There's also a lot of like intersectional roles. So let's say that you have been really good on-prem networking and security. It might be that you're getting introduced to certain things that kind of overlap that side, and you're getting new roles and responsibilities. And that can be seen as a threat, challenge. It can be really innovative. Depends on what your mindset is. So do you embrace it, or are you kind of pushing back on it? So I would say if you can embrace it, that will be key to success.
Yeah, and you mentioned lift and shift. So there are so many different types of cloud adoption that is possible. So if you just want to do lift and shift, but then just repeat everything like you did with your own servers, then is it really bringing you the benefits of the cloud, etc.? So I would argue not. So in order to really have the cloud mindset and take the advantage, is to, okay, maybe there are some things that you don't have to do anymore, which to some people is probably, it's a change in their job description, etc. Unlearning things that they used to do, doing things differently. So there's always this friction in this kind of a migration, which is natural to people. It's human. But so there will be different stages for different careers, but ultimately, this is how progress goes, and techies typically understand it. But I'm sure that there will be still, there are outliers and different stages of different companies that are going through sort of a similar process.
Yeah, and do you think this gets us a little bit back to the full stack model of the development? I mean, yeah. Well, I was a programmer. I was the developer like 10 or even more. I think like 15 years ago. I'm so old. And I think it's even longer. But back then, in these good old days, when I started my career as a developer, there was, it was required for a developer to do everything. It was I did both a CSS and a backend, and then I deployed production, and then I even cut the Photoshop designs. I just did everything, and this was kind of common. Nobody even protested that this works in this way. And then it started with this division that there is a backend, there is a front end, and then it went even deeper. I think that there is a DevOps. There is this discussion if there should be like a DevOps person, or this is a DevOps culture. There was a QAA, so a special person for the test automation. And I even think that it's not even a backend and the front end anymore. It's like a backend of the backend, the backend of the front end, the front end of the backend, the front end of the front end. At this level, or at least I think like 2 years ago it looked like that. There was a very narrow specialization for each of the people. And I think that now when we go more into this cloud native development, we have this circle that still it is expected from the developers to do more and to understand more of what is going on around them, not just their narrow specialization.
Sami, do you want to go first, or should I?
I can go. So, I mean, what you just described there is maybe an indication of the maturity level where we are. So, of course, if you start from one guy who understands how to develop something, then you kind of had to do it all by yourself. So in that sense, I think we may have come like a full circle that now again it is possible for a single person or a very small team to get stuff done in general by having all these sort of building blocks on the shelf. I mean, Ursula, you could probably talk about Amazon's way of building things and 2 pizza teams and so forth, like how you can with a small team be effective. But I wouldn't say yet that we wouldn't need things like DevOps or SRE functions and so forth, because to me, like as you grow as an organization and your product grows, you take it to mission critical tasks and so forth, then you absolutely have to have a really robust process of how you deploy software and how do you keep building software while in production in mission critical. So ultimately you still need like a platform engineering team, which is like a mix of probably like DevOps and SRE but also some business function like managing costs and so forth in order to empower your developers to be more productive on it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. So I don't think like the overarching roles are going anywhere, and it's kind of, you see it also in many ways of this overheated scenario what we are witnessing right now, that if you have really senior advisor roles, people fight and companies fight for those senior roles, but we do need those specializations, and the bigger the project is, the more specialized roles you will have. But I think also we are seeing now roles that are popping up and being created that didn't exist a few years back. So let's talk about like data and mitigating like data bias in data sets. Those roles, those like terms even didn't exist that way in a while back. Or let's say now that we have the generative AI side, like what is the risk mitigation there? So we see a lot of new roles popping up, things that we don't know yet that we will be creating roles for. So there's definitely a need for the specialization. So in that way, it hasn't changed that much, but like Sami said, is we have all the building blocks, so you can actually ramp up a huge infrastructure with quite small team right now.
The question, of course, is that should you? So sometimes it may not be a best idea if you don't know what you're doing, and that's kind of where we see then maybe the sticker shock that okay, whoa, this was an expensive exercise.
Yeah, and there you have to understand the cost. So I think also it kind of boils down back to the cost discussion and educational piece. So understanding what are the tools that you're basically handing over to your team. So education is a big part of it when you're changing the mindset.
Mm-hmm. And is it like the platform specific knowledge? Because I know there are a couple of cloud platforms there. Is it that you have to have this general cloud mindset, or actually it differs, or how much does it differ, or this is more of the same?
I would say, I would actually argue, so there's something, and this is very Finland specific now. So there was a lot of discussion about the cloud first strategy for the governmental level. So let's say governmental institutions, can they use cloud? There was a debate, is it pro, cons, etc. I would say that the overarching discussion of why cloud, why now, what is the right time, what are the architecture models, I think those are pretty much overarching things. So getting that mindset through is also doing a lot of basic level education. And then, of course, depending on what cloud house you're using, then you might have specialized pieces. But I would say it's more about understanding the mindset and maybe even transforming more to like a startup mindset of having that experimentation piece where you don't have to invest in the server rooms and the whole infra, and you can start small and scale up. But that's my take. What about Sami?
Yeah, so Can you repeat exactly what your question actually
Okay, so the
was?
question was so the question was if there is just a specific cloud mindset, whatever the platform
Right,
is,
right.
or
Yeah.
you know, you have a AWS
Yeah.
mindset. You have
So I was already kind of jumping into thinking about, so I forgot the original
Mhm.
question. So I think there's an element of like similar say properties regardless of cloud. So things like this curiosity and then keeping up to speed, because if you're a subscriber of say AWS's product news, it's a full-time job to actually keep up with that. So that is something that you kind of have to do, and it's the same with all the competitors as well. So the speed with the new products is breathtaking. So first you need to make the kind of the commitment that you want to follow that space. So I don't think that there's a difference between the vendors. Now there is subtle differences in, of course, the velocity and the amount probably. But yeah, I think that's kind of the what I would say, that you first need to decide that this is the direction, and then you kind of have to a little bit pick what you follow.
Because there are also this and I know this is mindset or this is strategy, but there are lots of discussion about multi-cloud or cloud agnostic. So this this requires you to have a even different mindset if you want to be multi-cloud, like you have a cloud of clouds.
I get that a lot, and it's typically in the same context of a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt whether cloud makes sense for this particular company. What are the threats, etc. So you kind of want to hedge your bets that okay, if AWS increases their prices, which would be a little bit strange for me, but or something breaks, etc. So you want to hedge. Something breaks, etc. So you want to. But when I make these decisions and make those decisions, I'm more like advocating that, look, you got to run fast. That's not really the time to hedge your bets. So if you start to be multi-cloud, then you multiply the amount of admin that you have to do, like user accounts, ingress, egress, all this kind of stuff. I think going all in with a provider, of course, then we can discuss that. Okay, what level you go all in, but yeah, that would be what I would recommend for a company with finite resources at least.
Yeah, so it's even bigger level of complexity. Ursula, and what do you think about multi-cloud?
So I think it's like mentioned, it's a lot about education, and of course the fact that I think, like Sami mentioned, that there's a lot of there's still self-doubt about in certain scenarios, like if cloud is even the option. So to get that mindset, what works for your company, and making those decisions and understanding the complexities, also overlapping scenarios. One thing, and I know that it's adding to the complexities, but I would love to mention, is also having that comparison of course, there's always cost. Whatever you do, there's cost, but also making comparisons of whatever investment you're doing. Now we also have to look at the environmental footprints and also having that understanding of what is the environmental footprint. Can you actually lower that? Can you actually spend less also on how you're doing, let's say, cooling or electricity usage or whatever? That is also one piece of the whole puzzle to understand, like, what is the overall impact on the environmental side. And if you have multi-cloud, that you also need to factor in and figure out what ways in those decision-making processes. So it is very much data-driven. So I would say that you have to have the data, understand why you're doing what you're doing, what decisions are you making, what is the cost, what is the environmental impact.
Yeah, if I may add one thing, is that as part of this curiosity, while I said that going all in, but that's more like, okay, where do you have your core of things? I think that's kind of the important piece. But then you should keep track, if you can, with what's going on in the other cloud and the other cloud after that. So to understand, okay, if somebody rolls out a very interesting product that will make a big difference to you, or maybe it's a start of a new business line, maybe you can set that new business line there, but you don't have to move everything or follow the trends with your core business.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we're almost out of time. So maybe let's wrap it up and a little bit of summary, or maybe like a final advice to wrap it up. If I'm like a, let's say I'm this tech person, and I already don't feel or I have a plan for a technical migration, right? So we know what to do, but some strange guy from the internet says that you have to adapt a cloud mindset in your whole organization, not only in IT. So what I should do, what advice I should take, what's the most important stuff I should take care of with my non-tech colleagues in order this to work? Any advices, Ursula?
I would actually start with the educational piece there. So I would actually maybe take those advice that kind of get introduced if you're brand new to the cloud technologies. Have that overview of what it consists of. What is that scalability? What is that cost, the flexibility? What does it mean to be global? And then maybe take that context of what you have now learned is talk about how would that improve your business? How would that allow you to do business faster, better, actually have products that would serve your customers better? So maybe my takeaway there is that talk about and talk with your customers. How would you serve them better and faster? How would you support them faster? And of course, spend time on that educational piece. And one question that I found useful is that if I ask you, what would be the resource if I gave you unlimited something? What would be that resource to make your business thrive? And you might be surprised about the answer when you answer that one. So usually it's not money. So if somebody says like, give me all the money in the world, that's probably not it. It could be something else. And then follow that. What would it improve along the line?
Mm-hmm. Sami?
Yeah, like I kind of alluded to earlier that not everybody has to be exposed to it as such. So it's more like inspiring people to try out new tools, try out new enablers that make them productive. Look at it really from the value creation point of view. But you do have to, of course, convince both the kind of the techies or the plumbing, if you will, and then also the top management that this is the direction to go. So without the buy-in from top management, typically these don't happen. But of course, like I've seen it many times that you kind of get in through the back door as well, that by just bringing in a cloud-based tools, then you just have to kind of start shifting strategies. And okay, maybe this mirror thing was actually a useful thing when we're all working remotely and so forth. So it's kind of a meeting both ends. I'd say that okay, you do need to have the grassroots buy-in that this is producing value, is not adding complexity. But then overall, then you have to demonstrate that this is bringing new business, bringing new markets, bringing cost savings or productivity gains to actually get the buy-in from the top as well. So that the rest sort of between will sort of shift gradually anyway when these two ends will meet.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I will add to it that maybe because I also saw that people are not really aware that all of the tools they are using is probably cloud-based in any way, and this wouldn't happen without the cloud. So they basically rather are in the cloud already, but they just don't know it. It's like if they're using Google Drive or Office 365 or Zoom or whatever other tool they're using in their normal life, or doing online shopping, they are probably using a lot of cloud. And I would also advice to make them aware that this all happens because of the cloud, and and you have to be a part of it.
Yeah, I guess the SaaS tools, that's kind of pretty much accepted in the industry nowadays. It's more of the question that, okay, is there something proprietary, something business critical running in the basement, that what to do with that?
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much for a discussion today. The time is running out. So thanks a lot, Ursula. Thanks a lot, Sami, for today's discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope our guests will and our audience enjoyed this as well. And see you next time.
See you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.